Urbex is the spirit of the Northwest. You and I will travel and go on adventures together. There's nothing like the Northwest. You and I will experience new things together. There's nothing like the Northwest. And it can be found here on PNWURBEX. PNWURBEX is spirit of the Northwest.
Welcome to Pacific Northwest Urbex. Today we are going to take a tour of a liquidating Fred Meyers. Now, Fred Meyers is prominent through Oregon, Washington State for the most part, and this is the first time I've ever seen a Fred Meyers close, and it's actually a little shocking, just because all the Fred Meyers stores do really well with customers. They have high traffic rates in all of their stores. My biggest complaint would be to any Fred Meyers is that it's tough to sometimes find parking, and just the amount of people inside the stores, it's a little crazy at times. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a tour inside the store after we take a look outside, and let's go inside and have a look around. Now, one of the major reasons for the closure of this particular store and a few other Fred Meyers stores is basically due to Kroger, its new parent company. It's basically due to theft. This can be a little bit rough area of Tacoma. Do I ever personally feel unsafe in this area? No. I feel probably more worried about my car being broken into than me physically just walking through the store to and from the vehicle. But you're going to notice when we walk inside, there's actually some swing gates. Now, basically in any Fred Meyers that I've been into, this is the first time I've ever seen these type of gates basically trying to help prevent theft. So that'll show a little bit of the area. As we walk through, the grocery department is pretty much, it's not really being liquidated. It seems like it's being ran pretty much as normal. It's all the other departments. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with Fred Meyers, basically Fred Meyers has a hardware department, home departments, apparel, shoes, sporting goods, garden center, pretty much every single thing that you could ever really need. You can basically find it in a Fred Meyers. But let's go ahead and walk around, and I'll go ahead and continue to tell you about Fred Meyers as we tour through. So as we're leaving the grocery area, we're going to start to enter the apparel department, and you can see all the fixtures kind of lined up and sectioned off. None of their fixtures were for sale. I'm assuming that maybe they're going to be shipped to other stores, possibly. I have no idea, but unlike most stores that are closing, this store basically had no fixtures for sale that I could see. But let's go ahead and continue walking through. Now we're going to be entering the home department, basically all the other departments, stationery, sporting goods, like home goods, etc. And this area was pretty well wiped out in a lot of areas, and it was in shambles. It was a mess. A lot of people here getting good deals. Basically, this whole Fred Meyer property here in South Tacoma, back in 1973, it was actually South Tacoma Shopping Center. This is much longer before Fred Meyer's ever came in. About 1985, they renovated the building into a grocery store and a shopping center. And then about 1993, Fred Meyer opened as part of a larger expansion of their stores in the Northwest region. So as you can see here, they have bins set up. This is not, if you've never been inside of Fred Meyer's, this is not typical of a Fred Meyer's. They're very organized, clean. You don't see, kind of like this kind right here kind of reminds me of Sears, of them just placing boxes out on the showroom floor. That is nothing typical of a Fred Meyer's. Very unusual, but it's just them trying to move their existing product out. All the stores, though, all the other stores, though, I mean, they're very clean. Pretty well, I don't know of anybody that really doesn't like going to Fred Meyer's. They're, as far as their pricing tier, they're not the most expensive. I think Safeway in the area can be more expensive. QFC can be a little bit more expensive. Fred Meyer's kind of mid-tier as far as their pricing. Now, the pricing during the sale, I really didn't see the best sales that I've ever seen, but I don't know. I think most people, when they see clearance going up, they're gonna just grab what, things that they think that are a good deal. And you can see here, I mean, they're pretty much wiping everything out pretty well. Now, this Fred Meyer's store closed permanently on September 27th of 2025. And it was basically for what Kroger came out with the statement as due to crime. And it's part of a wider closure of 60 stores nationwide. I can personally say that as far as when I walked into the store, I mean, you may see at a Fred Meyer's, you may see a security guard out in the parking lot sometimes. This store, walking in, I've never seen so much security. There was basically two security guys roving in a kind of like an off-road type tractor vehicle through the parking lot. There was a security car. There was another security guard walking through the parking lot. And when I was leaving the store to get out the gates, there was a kind of like a Walmart type employee checking receipts. And so that is my first experience ever in all my life ever going to a Fred Meyer store. So I can see the crime. They've obviously had crime problems at this store, which is unfortunate for the rest of the community. Also one of the biggest concerns of this Fred Meyer leaving the South Tacoma neighborhood is basically it's going to leave a food desert. This has been a community hub for decades. This store closing is basically leaving low-income residents with limited access to groceries and prescriptions in the area. There's not a whole lot of shopping options in this area. So that's going to be the biggest problem for this community. There is community efforts trying to save this store, but I think we all kind of know what the end result's going to be. But let's go ahead and walk around through the garden center here. I actually did end up finding some outdoor garden things that were like 50-70% off. Things I typically probably just wouldn't go out and buy, but because they were so cheap, I went ahead and picked up. Their plants that were left looked like they hadn't been watered in quite a while. I actually did pick up a couple plants, got them revived back. I don't really have the best green thumb in the world, but as far as some outdoor plants and stuff, I couldn't beat the pricing. The biggest pain is waiting in the long lines because there was just so many shoppers in the store looking for good deals. But let's go ahead and continue to walk around. Now, I can say personally, I used to work for Fred Meyer's many, many years ago. I worked at Fred Meyer's for a few years. And the biggest change that I can see in Fred Meyer's is basically on some of the products they sell. Back in the day, their hardware department actually carried lumber, had a paint department. You could have paints mixed. You could find a lot more hardware type things. Sporting goods, which is basically now just if you want a football, basketball, etc., bicycle, you can get that stuff in their sporting goods. But back in the day, sporting goods was actually you could buy fishing reels, fishing poles. We would spin the fishing lines for people. We sold. I really can't say it on YouTube, but we sold pew-pews, if you know what I mean. They got rid of all of that stuff many years ago, and that's probably kind of the biggest change that I've seen. It's just them kind of slimming the product line down. At the garden center, it's pretty much about the same. Apparel's about the same. Groceries about the same. But those two areas in hardware and the sporting goods is probably the biggest change. I've seen them kind of just streamline those down a little bit. Back in the day, they didn't have maybe as much furniture, houseware type stuff. They had housewares, but I see now they have more furnishing offerings. So that's kind of a big change too. But let's go ahead and continue to walk and see what we find. Now, one thing I can say is the last time I was in this store, it's been years, many years ago. This layout here and everything you see is new to me compared to what the old Fred Meyer's was. But I can also tell you that this store hasn't been updated in a really long time. A lot of the other Fred Meyers have been progressing to, kind of the no linoleum floor, just the concrete floor, just going with kind of the newer style, making it more bare, basic type, updating the look. This store is definitely stuck. I think probably, if I had to really guess, maybe the remodeling in the store was done back in the late 90s, possibly mid 90s. It's been that long since I've been in this store. But we'll go ahead and continue to look through. You can see, obviously, here in the electronics department, they have some products left. All the TVs and that type of product are completely gone. But we'll go and see what else they got. One thing I can also say is, each Fred Meyer's has a different layout. This store, I think, is maybe a little bit more unique. Like here, we're entering a closed-off shoe department. That is not typical of a Fred Meyer's. It's the other Fred Meyer stores. It's the shoe department is more merged into the apparel. In the apparel departments in the other stores are a little bit bigger. I think this store, as far as the square footage overall, is a little bit smaller than the typical Fred Meyer's. And I've also kind of noticed like the Kroger stores over the years back east has kind of switched into more offering more product. And I've always kind of wondered, it's like, did Kroger kind of take that idea that Fred Meyer's had and they kind of applied it to themselves? Was Kroger originally just a grocery store and then they kind of applied like multiple types of products? Because Fred Meyer himself, this was actually his concept of, not saying he was exclusive, but this was his concept from the beginning, and all of his stores was kind of expanding into all these areas decades ago. There is a few Fred Meyer only grocery stores. They're called Fred Meyer Markets. And the only one that I am really aware of is located out on Mountain Highway in Spanaway. I think I went into that store decades ago for something real quick. But majority of all the Fred Meyers have all these departments. It's just like I say, the layout's a little bit different. And this store, I think, overall is a little bit smaller. And like I said earlier, the grocery department was not on clearance. You can see that all of the gondolas are pretty well stocked. Look like they had been keeping up the stock. Probably did up until the last day. One thing I do find a little odd about this store is normally in halfway through these aisles, there's a raceway in the middle of the store. And I've never really experienced that in a Fred Meyer's. Not saying that no other Fred Meyer's doesn't have that, but the raceway through the center makes it a little bit easier to kind of navigate and quicker. Here you have to go all the way from one side of the store to the other. And I don't know if that's an anti-theft type thing to try to make it harder for people to steal and get out of the store. That I'm really just not really too sure about. But so I did notice that walking down these aisleways. Well, before we leave this Fred Meyer's, let's take a look at the front of the store, see what stores they have towards the front. You know, basically here we're going to see a Chase Bank, we're going to see a pharmacy, eye care store. Of course, here they've expanded into the shoe department. I'm not really sure what that was originally years ago. Don't really remember. You know, they kind of have like stores within a store. Fred Meyer Jewelers is also here. I think they were running a little bit of a sale, but not really that much of one. And then, of course, the home electronics. So they have quite a few little departments that they have towards the front. So we'll continue walking through before we head out of the store. Well, I think it's that time that we head out. If you're still watching this, I really do appreciate it. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and share button. I really do want to say thank you for watching this with me today. And there's a lot of other videos come. There's been a lot of other videos posted. Go back to my channel at Pacific Northwest Urbex or PNWURBEX, and you can check out a lot of other stores. Make sure you have a great week. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.